Good day everyone! My name is Franco Miguel F. Olarte, a BSED English major student at Northeastern Mindanao State University Bislake campus. Today, I will be a facilitator and I'm very excited to handle this class and share my knowledge as well as my insights. To us future educators, our topic for today indeed really is interesting, and I hope throughout this lesson you'll learn something from me and finish this class with new learnings. But before we start the class, of course, we will start the class with a motivation activity for all of us to be energized. Are you ready, class? I guess everyone's ready to be energized and start the class with a high and fun energy. Our motivational activity for today is entitled Arrange Me. Someone is asking a question in a chat box. What will we do in this activity? Well, it's pretty simple. I'll be showing a definition of term and all you need to do is to guess what the given statement is stating or referring to. To add a fun twist, I have put jumbled letters and all you need to do is to arrange the jumbled letters in order for you to get the correct answer. Is the instruction crystal clear, class? I guess everyone in this room have understood the instruction. Now let's start the activity called Arrange Me. Number 1. Proportion of high scoring group is greater than that of the low scoring group. What do you think is the correct answer? Just click the raise hand button if you wanted to answer or speak in class. Oh, I see student A is raising his hand. What do you think is the correct answer, student A? Let's see if student A got the correct answer. Yes, that's right. Student A got the correct answer. The answer is positively discriminating item. Now let's proceed to number 2. Number 2. Proportion of high scoring group is less than that of the low scoring group. What do you think is the appropriate answer for this statement? Remember to just raise your raise hand button. Just click the raise hand button if you wanted to answer in class. Yes, student B. What do you think is the appropriate answer? Oh, let's see if student B got the correct answer. That's right! Student B got the correct answer. The answer is negatively discriminating item. The last statement, which is number 3. Proportion of high scoring group is less than that of the low scoring group. What do you think is the answer, class? Just remember to raise your hand if you want to speak in class. Yes, student C is raising his hand. You are recognized, student C? That's right, student C. The answer is not discriminating. Positively discriminating item, negatively discriminating item, and not discriminating item. Those 3 mentioned later, we will discuss it later to the class. Now the question is, what do you think is our topic for today? Oh, student D is recognized. Do you have any idea of what will be our topic for today? Yes, that's right. Indeed, our topic for today is Discrimination Index. Before we formally start our class, let's first read our learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, the learners will be able to first, identify what is discrimination index. Second, compare and contrast the 3 parts of discrimination index. Third, apply the steps in obtaining the proportions of the upper and lower groups. And last, analyze the discrimination index to measure the validity of an item. I hope we will meet all those mentioned learning outcomes in today's class. Is the learning objectives understandable, class? Oh, that's good to know that the class have understood the learning objectives for today. First, let's define what is discrimination index. Anyone from the class knows or has an idea of what discrimination index is. Just click your raise hand button if you want to answer. Yes, student E is raising his hand. What do you think is discrimination index? That's right, student E. A discrimination index is an item statistics that can reveal useful information for improving an item. It shows the relationship between the student's performance in an item, the right or wrong, or his or her total performance in the task represented by the total score. Meaning, the discrimination index is a basic measure of the validity of an item. It is a measure of an item's ability to discriminate between those who scored high on the total test and those who scored low. The discrimination index provides an indication of the ability of the group of students who selects each option in terms of how they perform as a group on the examination overall. Is the definition of discrimination index understandable, class? Very good, class. Item total correlation is usually part of a package for item analysis. Getting high item total correlations indicate that the items contribute well to the score, so that responding correctly to these items gives a better chance of obtaining relatively high total scores in the whole test or subtest. Again, class, is item total correlation part in the process of item analysis? Yes or no? That's right, yes, meaning a highly discriminating item indicates that the students who had high test scores got the item correct, whereas students who had low test scores got the item incorrect. For classroom tests, the discrimination index shows if a difference exists between the performance of those who scored high and those who scored low in an item. As a general rule, the higher the discrimination index, the more marked the magnitude of the difference is, and thus, the more discriminating the item is. The nature of the difference, however, can take different directions. There are three parts of the discrimination index. First is a positively discriminating item. The positively discriminating item tells the proportion of high-scoring group is greater than that of the low-scoring group. Second is the negatively discriminating item. The negatively discriminating item tells that the proportion of high-scoring group is less than that of the low-scoring group. Third and last is the not discriminating item. The not discriminating item tells that the proportion of high-scoring group is equal to that of the low-scoring group. Did the class understand the parts of the discrimination index as well as their differences? Oh, since student F is saying yes, give the three parts of the discrimination index as well as their differences. Yes, student F is right. There are three parts of discrimination index. First is a positively discriminating item. When talking about positively discriminating item, it tells that more from the upper group got the correct answer. Meanwhile, negatively discriminating item is the opposite of positively discriminating item, since in this part, more from the lower group got the correct answer. In the last instance, not discriminating item is an item that cannot be discriminated, since the proportion of high-scoring group is equal to that of the low-scoring group. Also, class, you need to remember, if it's positively discriminating item should be retained. But if it's negative and zero, item should be rejected. Again, class, if it's positive, item should be retained. But if it's negative and zero, item should be rejected. calculation of discrimination index therefore requires obtaining the difference between the proportion of the high-scoring group getting the item correctly and the proportion of the low-scoring group getting the item correctly using the simple formula. D is equal to RU over TU minus R1 over T1, where D is item discrimination index, RU is the number of upper group getting the item correct, TU which is the number of upper group, R1 which is the number of lower group getting the item correct, and of course T1 which is the number of the lower group. Just follow the simple formula and you'll get the discrimination index. According to Cobison and Boric 2010, another calculation can bring about the same result as D is equal to RU minus R1 over T, where RU is the number of upper group getting the item correct, R1 which is the number of lower group getting the item correct, and T which is the number of either group. As you can see, R over T is getting the p-value of an item. To get D is to get the difference between the p-value involving the upper half and the p-value involving the lower half. According to Popam 2011, the formula for discrimination index, or D, can also be given as D is equal to PU minus P1, where PU is the p-value for the upper group, where p-value is equal to RU, or the number of upper group getting the item correct, divided by TU, or the number of the upper group, and also minus to P1 which is the p-value for lower group, where p-value is equal to R1, or the number of lower group getting the item correct, divided by T1, or the number of lower group. Are the three formulas understandable, class? Don't worry, class. Later we will explain the process of the calculation of the discrimination index, as I will be giving a sample. But before that, let's tackle on how to obtain the proportions of the upper groups and the lower groups responding to the item correctly, as well as the guidelines for evaluating the discriminating efficiency of items. To obtain the proportions of the upper and the lower groups responding to the item correctly, the teacher should follow these steps. First, score the test papers using a key to correlation to obtain the total scores of the students. Maximum score is the total number of objective items. Second, order the test papers from highest to lowest score. Third, split the test papers into halves, the high group and the low group. For a class of 50 or less students, do a 50 to 50 split. Take the upper half as the high group and the lower half as the low group. For a big group of 100 or so, take the upper 25 to 27% and the lower 25 to 27%. Also, remember to maintain equal members of test papers for upper and lower group. Fourth, obtain the p-value for the upper group and the p-value for the lower group. Again, class, how do we get the p-value of both upper and lower group? What is the formula? Yes, student G, what again are those formulas? Yes, you are right, student G. To get p-value for upper group, you need to get the RU, or the number of upper group getting the item correct, divided by TU, or the number of upper group. Whereas to get the p-value for lower group, you need to divide both R1, which is the number of lower group getting the item correct, and T1, which is the number of lower group. And the last step, which is the fifth step, is to get the discrimination index by getting the difference between the p-values. Again, class, what is the formula to get the difference between the p-value involving the upper half and the lower half? Just raise your hand button if you want to answer. Yes, student H, you are recognized. Yes, that's right, student H. The formula is D, where D is item discrimination index, is equal to PU, which is the p-value for upper group, minus to P1, which is the p-value for lower group. Are the steps clear, class? Okay, very good, class. Good job. For purposes of evaluating the discriminating power of items, Bobang 2011 offers the guidelines proposed by Abel and Frisbee 1991 shown in the table below. The teachers can be guided on how to select the satisfactory items and what to do to improve the rest. Here's a table of the guidelines for evaluating the discriminating efficiency of items. If the discrimination index is 0.19 and below, it means that the item is a poor item, which it should be rejected or improved by revision. If the discrimination index ranges from 0.20 to 0.29, the item is a marginal item, which this item usually needs improvement. And if the discrimination index ranges from 0.30 to 0.39, the item is reasonably a good item, but possibly subject to improvement. Lastly, if the discrimination index ranges from 0.40 and above, the item is a very good item, and it should be selected or retained. Is the given table clear, class? Okay, just remember the ranges. Again, if the discrimination index is 0.19 and below, it is a poor item and it should be rejected. If the discrimination index is 0.20 to 0.29, it is a marginal item and it should be retained but revised. Same with 0.30 to 0.39 since it is a reasonably good item. Lastly, if the discrimination index is 0.40 and above, it is a very good item and it should be retained. Is it understandable, class? Okay, very good. As you can see, class, I have a sample here, a sample question of an achievement test, particularly a 3-item test. And you can see in the next slide is the data gathered during the item analysis. I have split the test papers into halves, high group and low group. Since it's a class containing a big group, I have taken 27% students from each group. There are 20 students for both groups. And as you can see in the table, there is a huge difference of response for both groups. Whereas for item 1, the difference of response is 11. To get the discriminating index, let us use the formula B is equals to RU over TU minus R1 over T1. First, let's get the p-value for upper group. Let's divide RU, which is the number of upper group getting the item correct, which is 16, divided by TU, which is the number of upper group, which is 20. So 16 divided by 20 is 0.80. Next, let's get the p-value for lower group. Let's divide R1, which is the number of lower group getting the item correct, which is 5, divided by T1, which is the number of lower group, which is 20. So 5 divided by 20 is 0.25. So now let's minus both p-values. 0.80, which is the p-value for upper group, minus 0.25, which is the p-value for lower group. So 0.80 minus 0.25, you'll get a discrimination index of 0.55. Now let's go back to the table. The guidelines for evaluating the discriminating efficiency of terms. As we get a 0.55 discrimination index, we could evaluate that the item is a very good item, meaning it should be selected or retained. Is it understandable, class? Okay, very good, class. Now let's continue. It's the same process. For item 2, 7 out of 20 students from the upper group got the correct answer. Meanwhile, 3 out of 20 students from the lower group got the correct answer. So we can tell that the difference of response is 4. So by following the same formula, it resulted to a 0.20 discriminating index. Looking back at the table of guidelines for evaluating the discriminating efficiency of items, so we could evaluate that the item is a marginal item which should be retained and needs improvement. So for item number 3, so 2 out of 20 students from the upper group got the correct answer. Meanwhile, no one from the lower group got the correct answer. So we could tell that the difference of response is just 2. So by following the same formula, it resulted to a 0.10 discriminating index. So looking back at the table of guidelines for evaluating the discriminating efficiency of items, so we could evaluate that the item is a poor item which should be rejected. So to sum it up, item number 1 is a very good item, hence we select or retain it. Item number 2 is a marginal item which it needs to be revised. In the last instance, item number 3 is a poor item which needs to be discarded or rejected. So is the interpretation understandable, class? Oh, good job, class! As we can all see, awareness of item writing guidelines can provide cues on how to improve items, negative or non-negative discrimination indices. So, are there any questions, class, or any clarifications? Oh, since everyone said none so far, I'll be giving an activity entitled Analyze and Interpret. So listen to the instruction, class. So you have conducted a 3-item task to a class of 50. So shown below are the correct responses of both the upper and the lower group in each item. So measure the validity of an item by obtaining the p-value of the upper and the lower group. Also, get the discrimination index by getting the difference between the p-values. So provide the item evaluation, interpretation, as well as your solution. Submit your answer in the Google Classroom LMS, and deadline of submission will be today, 11:59 p.m. Is the instruction clear and concise, class? Okay, class, thank you for listening and participating in today's session. I hope the class have understood the topic well, and good luck with your activity. See you on the next session. Goodbye, class!